Story 1. My parents' relationship was challenging. I believe they had children hoping it would bring them happiness, but when that didn't occur, they placed blame on my sibling and me. Story 2. Being left 3 months postpartum because my ex couldn't handle postpartum hormones and family life. The baby is only 5 months old now, so this experience is still fresh. Story 3. I found out my partner was a pedophile and it almost killed me. Obviously, it was over immediately, no discussions or counseling, just done. Felt like life ripped the carpet out from under me. Couldn't eat, sleep, or think. I lost so much weight that I had to be hospitalized. There are no words for the awfulness. Story 4. The conversation ended with me weighing 73 pounds and him telling me not to trust the doctors because they were trying to make me gain weight. Story 5. The one where everyone told me he was nice and to give him a chance. He was not nice, he was abusive. If your gut says no, don't do it, no matter what people say. Story 6. The decade-long violent experience I escaped from a month ago still affects me. I am currently in hiding and will likely be for a long time, so the drama is not over. Story 7. The one where she had an alcohol dependency. Runner-up. The one who spent hundreds of dollars a month on a psychic and called it therapy. In summary, I struggle with choosing my partners. Story 8. The 6'5" recently divorced father of 2, a deputy sheriff 10 years older than I, met me while I was standing barefoot on my mother's lawn during summer break from college. He misused his resources to obtain my information, reached out, and quickly courted me, followed by months of emotional and physical intimidation, isolation, and abuse. Who could have seen it coming? Story 9. She was actively going through a divorce. I had never had the experience. I understand now well enough to steer clear. Apparently not well enough because I just made the same mistake last week. Story 10. He was diagnosed with bipolar disorder but did not receive treatment. He tried to guilt and pressure me endlessly about an abortion I had at 20, which I have never regretted. He cheated on me, likely multiple times. Story 11. He was much older than me but still acted like a child. Then he abused me and took me out of the state. Story 12. I was in a toxic relationship with an abusive and narcissistic individual who struggled with addiction. He betrayed my trust in terrible ways. Now, I am happily engaged to a wonderful person who has always treated me with kindness and respect. He does not drink or use any harmful substances. Story 13. Bipolar disorder diagnosed and narcissistic personality disorder traits. There is a lot of careful navigation and significant drama. It's nice to live a peaceful life now. Story 14. He convinced me to get divorced and start a new life with him, so I did. Then he ghosted me and married his actual girlfriend 5 weeks later. That was last week, and it's still pretty fresh. My family hates me, my child hates me, and I hate myself. I hope he is happy, though. Story 15. I challenged an Indian man once. The thought of him being with a white woman offended his family so much that they arranged his marriage. So I would say that. Story 16. I don't know why I suffered the most after really bad relationships. The more dramatic the relationship, the more dramatic the breakup. One was an abuser, sociopath, and narcissist. I was the one to break up and decided I never wanted to have a relationship. I wish I had kept that promise. It would have saved me a lot of pain. One was a guy who gave me just enough attention to keep me available to him, but we were never in a real relationship. It was more like a couple of one-night stands. I still feel awkward when I meet him. The last one was a cheater, someone I never suspected would do that. He was cheating almost from the beginning. Story 17. I don't know if I would consider it a romantic relationship. It was mostly a friends with benefits situation for over a year. Eventually, I learned she had narcissistic personality disorder. After I ended the relationship, she had a few of her friends burglarize my apartment, stealing over $8,000 worth of electronics, my $3,600 retro video game console collection, my $3,200 comic book collection, and my $4,800 Lego collection. The police did nothing, the apartment manager did nothing, and the 8 different law offices I contacted all refused to take my case. Story 18. This relationship was with my ex. He was addicted to casino gambling and fell into very large debts. He was found and punished. After that, he disappeared, and I miss him very much. I wish I could go back in time. Story 19. We were very young when we met before I became aware of many of my problems. It was a long-distance relationship creating a trauma bond. We remained friends out of obsession, which lasted far too long. It felt as if neither of us could say goodbye, but staying friends was harming us. Story 20. He was nice and kind for the first few months, then slowly tried to convince me that I was overweight. He made things up about his behavior, guilt me into intimacy when I was in pain, and claimed I was an alcoholic simply because I wanted a glass of wine with dinner. He controlled what I ate and how many times I brushed my teeth. Ultimately, I escaped after crying and screaming loudly when he blocked the door to the apartment. He was afraid of what the neighbors would think. I am so happy that I finally learned my self-worth after that experience. Story 21. The one who put me on a pedestal used the old phrase, "You're out of my league," to seek continuous reassurance before experiencing retroactive jealousy. Not for what I did, there was nothing, but for what I could have done with other men and even for a celebrity crush. Then he cheated on me with his university friend, and they became a couple. Subsequently, he cheated on her with another girl who decided to stalk me because she thought I was still planning to win him back. When she found me, I had already blocked him and some mutual friends for months and was seeing another person. Talking with her was a profound experience. She needed continuous reassurances and had unresolved jealousy issues. They were a match made in heaven. Story 22. I had just turned 30. I had scrimped, saved, and spent all of my 20s in the world's tiniest apartment with 3 roommates so that I could buy a little house. It was small and not in the greatest part of town, but it was super cute, and the neighbors were nice and looked out for each other. My commute to work was very easy. He wanted us to move in together but refused to live anywhere other than his current neighborhood. I still don't know how he pulled it off, but he convinced me to rent my house so we could move into an apartment in his area. I didn't find anyone I liked, but he was putting so much pressure on me that I finally signed a lease with someone and found us an apartment. My tenant never paid a single month and fought the eviction process the entire way. Because of a backlog in the system, it took about 8 months to get her out. During that time, I used every last penny of my savings to pay rent, mortgage, and legal fees, racking up about $10,000 in debt to stay afloat. She also caused over $60,000 in damage to the house before leaving. He broke up with me after 5 months of that because my situation was bringing too much drama to his life. I was homeless for 3 months until I could get back into my house, which was barely livable. Between the debt from those 8 months and the $60,000 to make the house livable again, I had to sell it in order to pay off the loans I had taken out. I was still left with about $12,000 in debt after the sale, back in a tiny apartment with roommates. It taught me some very valuable and expensive lessons. Now in my 40s, married to an incredible man, we bought a little house together 2 years ago, so all's well that ends well. However, even after a year of therapy, I still get very angry anytime I hear his name, at him and also at myself for letting him talk me into any of it when I was very happy living alone in my little house. Story 23. I would describe my first situation where the guy got me pregnant and gave me a sexually transmitted infection. That was a double whammy. He had severe mental health issues, and I was going for the "I shall save him" vibe. Obviously, I have learned since then. However, in my most recent experience, the guy ghosted me after 2 years. I was feeling safe and loved until a distance started, and then he vanished. Story 24. The time I was working 8.5 hours a day, walking 2 hours, 1 hour to and 1 hour back to work. I paid for rent and everything while he did nothing but demanded things from me. He used my name and accomplishments for himself and caused serious harm just to make my life more miserable because he couldn't handle it. He cheated multiple times while I remained faithful. He even tried to exploit me without me recognizing it, which is why he was frustrated when I didn't cheat. He received money and the other person wanted it back. Unfortunately, he is not the only one who attempted to exploit me. This still haunts me because people tend to listen to those who are ignorant. Story 25. She was beautiful, in her mid-30s, and worked in a library I visited often. It was only after dating her that I learned she drank every lunchtime and took drugs while at work. She was also controlling, enjoyed playing mind games, and towards the end of our relationship resorted to scratching the skin off the back of my hand when I had the audacity to turn down the car stereo so I could hear what her daughter was saying in the back seat. I had never been so relieved to have a difficult conversation, and I ended the relationship as firmly as decency would allow. Story 26. Dating someone who said, "I don't believe in labels," was the biggest red flag I ever ignored, and I paid for it in monthly doses of emotional chaos disguised as deep conversation. Story 27. My uncle's marriage resulted in 13 children in 13 years with his wife. My grandparents, who were raising me, had to spend all their money, as finances were already tight, helping him support his large family. I was expected to help before and after school every day. When I was 13, we discovered that he had a second wife and 5 additional children. Apparently, the second wife had passed away, so he was forced to bring the children he had with her home for his wife to raise. It was later discovered that he was cheating on both of them and had 3 more children with a third woman. Story 28. Teenage crushes can often involve one-sided attraction. It may feel like there is more than friendship, but it doesn't always lead to an official relationship. Story 29. In a first relationship with a small age gap, the issue wasn't the gap itself but rather his sense of entitlement, which exceeded his maturity. First relationships can be quite damaging because the only experience you have is the limited information modeled by your parents. If you were fortunate, those were positive examples. It can be confusing to learn what is truly good and healthy in relationships, and that sometimes the people we wish well for do not necessarily want the same for us. Story 30. My marriage has lasted 10 times longer than any previous relationship. There's a lot more time for drama in 20 years than in 2. Story 31. High school boyfriend was sent to a Christian summer camp. 3 days was enough for him to be convinced that anything before marriage was a sin. It started with no more sexual contact and ended with him leaving me for the church. I even became part of it for a while until I realized it was a cult. This was not just regular Christianity, it was a straight-up cult. I missed 2 Sunday services in a row, one for being sick and another because I was visiting my mother in another state. The minister told me I missed too many services and that God needed to be my primary focus, and missing services took that away. When I told the church I was leaving, their exact words were, "You're choosing sin over eternal life. Is that what you really want?" I said yes, walked away, and never went back. It was such a traumatizing time that even almost 20 years later, it still haunts me. Story 32. My now ex-girlfriend, who is 19, cheated on me, who is 18, with a 27-year-old man. When I confronted her, she accused me of trying to manipulate her and claimed that I gave her death threats. Story 33. The relationship I had with a person who did not inform me about their gender was chaotic. This person had schizoaffective disorder. When I returned, they were not who I thought they were. Story 34. I have an ex who I've nicknamed Five Guys, and it has nothing to do with the expensive fast food restaurant. Story 35. I had friends at work who ended up in a relationship. There were 4 of us in total. We'll call the couple X and Y. There was me and a woman we'll call Z. Z is also Y's sister. We'd all arrange a trip out, but for some reason, everyone but Z's leave was approved, so Z couldn't go. I offered to stay behind so it could be a date time for X and Y. "No, please come. We want you there too." Or I'd offer to swap with Z, so I'd be the one working. "No, I can't take your holiday. Go have a nice time with X and Y." This went on for about 9 months, then I got a new job. I was on shift with Y during my notice period, and he was very cold. He only talked to me when he needed to, and then it was only one word. In our job, I was really the only one he needed to communicate with, so the idea that he was only off with me hadn't crossed my mind. I was on a late shift on another day when I received a long message from him, warning me to stay out of their relationship, and I ended up blocked, so I couldn't even respond. I messaged X about it. She got back to me the next morning. I said something like, "It's like he thinks I'm trying to steal your man." X replied, "Well, I was thinking that, to be fair." Upon further digging, it turns out X made Y send that message. Now, I know you might think there are missing reasons, but I have no idea what led them to this narrative that I am the relationship ruiner. The closest thing I have is that I once messaged Y asking if he had mistakenly put his socks in my bag. Me, X, and Y had gone to our big city for different events and stayed overnight. When I got home and unpacked, I found a pair of men's socks in my bag. They could have been planted by X or belonged to another guy friend since, if memory serves, I went somewhere with that other friend and stayed overnight too. I will now never go anywhere with a couple unless there are more than 3 of us. It would be interesting to see how this would have played out if I hadn't been leaving that job at the time. Story 36. I stayed with a girl for 2 years. She was my first real girlfriend at 21. There was dependency, gaslighting, and jealousy in the relationship. I reacted poorly to all of that, which eventually led to a breakup. This, in turn, resulted in anxiety and depression, which caused severe insomnia. It has been almost 3 years now, and I still struggle to sleep. Story 37. The first girl I dated, we never entered an actual relationship. However, we were exclusive and quickly moving toward a boyfriend-girlfriend situation. We exchanged Christmas presents since it was shortly after Thanksgiving and before the New Year. She was very pushy about sex. She didn't intend to be, as she was very nice about it all, but it became increasingly awkward, and I felt more pressure to perform. It reached a point where it seemed that I didn't want it in the moment, but she did, and I felt compelled to try to keep her happy. I still am not sure I have recovered because I continue to struggle with performing to this day. The last woman I dated left me because I became overwhelmed in my thoughts and couldn't finish, even though I was willing to do things for her to please her. Story 38. We had a fairly normal relationship that gradually came to an end. Nothing significant happened. It simply became clearer to me that we were incompatible, so I ended things. She posted a few angry comments about me on social media. I unfriended and unfollowed her. Our mutual friends mentioned that she carried on for a while before stopping. About a year later, she messaged me to apologize and asked if we could reconnect. I agreed, and we caught up as if nothing had happened, with no drama re-emerging. Story 39. My brother constantly uses my failed marriage as an excuse to extract money from our parents and buy expensive gifts for his wife and their family. My parents, worried about their public image, take it out on me. He and his wife also become jealous and create drama when positive things start happening for me. Story 40. I guess I'm fortunate. Most of the drama I experienced in the past was due to incompatibility and immaturity in the relationships. Sure, some of the girls had their own issues, but that was just the icing on the cake that ended things. They all served their purpose in time, though. I eventually found someone with great compatibility. The relationship was mature, and months in, we realized there was no drama. She was definitely a keeper. Story 41. My first experience with a relationship that I thought would motivate me became the reason I lost my scholarship and put my family in debt to help me finish my studies. It was very toxic. She always threatened to leave if I didn't reply immediately, even though I explained that I was studying. She would accidentally send a wrong message pretending to text other guys, which severely affected my mental health. After 3 to 4 breakups, as I kept asking her to come back, and after 1 year of dating, I finally ended it for real. She threatened to break up with me, so I called her bluff and cut contact. Unfortunately, it was too late. My grades suffered, and I lost my scholarship. I had to transfer schools and struggled for a while. Well, 10 years later, I have a decent job, and I am now helping my sister go through college. Story 42. The moment I realized that I resembled his deceased mother, he completely lost his temper online because I ended our relationship. I only saw the things he posted because he uses the same username on every website he frequents. The last I heard, he got married a few years ago and adopted her surname. Good luck to her, I say. Story 43. My partner fabricated stories about people around me. For example, they claimed, I asked my friend about your group of friends. They made a face and said your group is cliquey. I found this strange because my friend group did not know this person and had not interacted with them. Later, they revised their story to say that this friend was actually just discussing friend groups in general. Story 44. I went through a disputed custody divorce with my ex-wife, who struggled with borderline personality disorder and cheated on me. She fired 5 divorce lawyers, violated a court order, and once left a message on my answering machine claiming that the judge in our case was corrupt. I ultimately gained custody of her daughter, who, after years of therapy, no longer speaks to her mother. Story 45. I had to call my mom every day for a couple of weeks to let her know I was still safe because of my partner's violent ex. Story 46. The one where their family disliked me because they were against our relationship. Their relationship with some family members was really strained while we were together. From what I've seen, they are very close to their family now that I am not in the picture, so I am really happy that things worked out for them. Story 47. The time I was 23, he pressured me for marriage while my mother had a terminal illness. Then, at 33, he pressured me again while my father was dying of pancreatic cancer and found someone else to give him attention. He married her. Story 48. The one that ended for no good reason. Everything was going fine until it wasn't, and no, I don't think it was my lack of picking up hints. This kind of breakup really makes you question everything and drove me a little insane for a while. Story 49. My wife and I agreed to have friends with benefits. It worked for about a year, but then things changed. What wasn't supposed to become romantic did. She fell hard for her partner, and I became trapped by my own relationship. She was both really good and insatiable. It almost ruined us. Thankfully, we both ended it just in time. It's been 20 years since, and we will never do it again. Story 50. Narcissistic partner. I still have trauma 3 years after that relationship. I don't think it will be easy for me to trust someone again. Story 51. A narcissistic pathological liar with 5 children, who is divorced, knows how to play the victim role like a Hollywood star. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.